恐ろしく早い？違うな。
Hey everybody, welcome back, and today I got another Jujutsu Kaisen review for you. It's episode 2, it's called Myself, and so far I'm loving it, man. I've loved this episode 1, episode 2. The animation's great, the music's great, especially we get to see the ending today in this episode for the first time, and it's just amazing. Just a clean animation. The music was great. It reminded me of a few like old school anime and kind of like some American old school hip hop songs. It was really nice, and it just was really fluid, and the whole episode was great. We got to see some more progression of where the story is going to be going overall, like for the long run, and we get to see the aftermath of everything that happened in episode 1. It was really great. So it starts off right where we landed off in episode 1, where Fushiguro was going to try to exercise Itadori, but he wasn't sure the whole time because he was kind of going back and forth, and he was using Itadori's regular voice when he was talking to Fushiguro, and then all of a sudden Goju shows up, which is the sensei or the teacher for them, and he's ended up challenging Itadori, and he's like, can you control it? Like, he was talking to him, and he was just like kind of impressed with him that he was able to be like suppressing Sukuna at this time, just being like a new vessel is what he was talking about. So he's like, give me 10 seconds and then regain control is what he told them. So when he started at 10 seconds, it was just like this amazing fight scene. It was beautiful animation. I should have a clip at the very beginning of this one, but it was just so clean. The camera was very dynamic in the movement, and all the impacts it was showing was just very powerful, and it had a lot of energy in that scene, kind of like some of the scenes in the first episode. But I'm really excited. I was really impressed with the animation in this episode, and it looked like, even in the preview for the next one, it looked like it was going to be really good because it looked like there's going to be some fight scenes going on in episode 3. But it was great, and that stood out in this episode, and also the fight and the whole conversation when he met the principal. And then that was we'll talk about that in just a second. But that's how it ended up. So after 10 seconds, he does regain control, and then Gojo kind of knocks out Itadori, and he's kind of he's gonna end up testing him and seeing if he's gonna be valuable to them and be a good vessel for Sukuna. And we find out a little bit more later on what he's talking about there. So it does cut back like in a movie where it's like it does like the jump cut back to the beginning of episode 1 in that first scene where he was saying that Itadori was going to be executed, but we figure out in more context that he's going to be executed at a later date. So what's the plan is he ended up postponing that execution for Itadori. Gojo did, and the way he kind of offered it up to the people, the higher ups, is that they're going to use Itadori as a vessel to contain all of Sukuna. And Sukuna is like the curse that was inside Itadori that he ate the finger of, and the plan is that they're not able to destroy these fingers, and there's 20 fingers like scattered all over, and some we find out later are inside other curses, some are just hidden, some are very vibrant and have a lot of energy, and they're easy to find. And right now they're in possession. The Jujutsu school has 6 of the fingers, and they're not able to be destroyed. They're super powerful, even like these stronger I'm not sure what they're called, but they're not able to be destroyed. So the plan is to make Itadori absorb all of them, put them inside of him, combine them, and then let Itadori die or kill Itadori. And in doing so, it'll kill Sukuna at the same time, because if they're inside of him, they're gonna die along with Itadori. So that's kind of like the plan of what's going on, and that's like the long game of the whole anime that's going to be happening. So that was really interesting to learn. And then we learned a few more facts about Sukuna. So he's got 4 arms, they said, and 2 faces, and 1,000 years ago he was actually a human being, and then I guess he just turned into a curse. And even like the Jujutsu users, the people back then that used Jujutsu, were not able to defeat him, even ganging up on him and trying to use all their power against him. And then for the next few hundred years or however long it's been, he's been like floating around, traveling as a cursed object and still causing all this mayhem. And they ended up referring to him as the king of curses. So I guess he's like the most powerful bad guy in this universe that we have here. And that's really interesting to learn his backstory. So after that scene, he's able to go visit his friend Iguchi-senpai and Sasaki. And it was really interesting in this part because this is something that doesn't happen in a lot of animes, that the main character explains what's going on. Because sometimes, like if, for example, like if they have some kind of powers, they're like, oh, you can't tell anybody about it. You got to keep it a secret. But he openly says that it was a curse that caused this, and then it was my fault. And he was explaining it to Sasaki, because she was just crying and she was blaming herself. And he ended up saying that it was actually him that caused all this to happen. And then the other interesting part he said was that there's going to be someone here tomorrow that's going to be able to fix Iguchi. So I was wondering if they're going to send somebody from the Jujutsu school, or if it's going to be Gojo that's going to do it. But they're going to help him out because Iguchi was doing pretty poorly in the hospital. So he ends up leaving, and then the next scene is at the cremation place for his grandfather. So I think it's like a different tradition in Japanese culture. I guess they burn the body, and it looked like he was picking through the bones. I'm not sure. I probably should do some research on that, but it's like a tradition in Japanese culture for them to do that. And he was picking through the bones of the ashes, and Gojo was there, and they were both talking, and they were talking about the death from the curses, and he said it's pretty like good for them when it's actually a normal death instead of them dying from the curse, is what Gojo was saying to him. Because normally, like even in a better case situation, the body's just destroyed from the curse, and that's one of the best case scenarios, he said. And I wasn't sure what they meant. Maybe one of y'all understood more than I did, but for me it kind of seemed like Itadori being close to his grandfather with that cursed item caused his death in a way. I wasn't sure if that was how y'all interpreted it too, but that's kind of how I was hearing it and the way Gojo was describing it. But I didn't know. I wasn't for 100% on that. So if y'all know, please let me, and I'd be really interested to see if there's any truth behind that. So they keep talking about Sukuna, and then Itadori's asking, well, if he's gone, will fewer people be killed or hurt? Because they're talking about how many people get hurt every day with it. And Gojo says yes, like of course, because he's like one of the worst curses that's out there. So he asks for the second finger, and Itadori eats it. And it looked pretty bad for a second, like he was gonna transform in the middle there where his grandfather's his ashes were and Gojo was. But he's kind of like, he just controls it all of a sudden, and he just laughs it off because it was just so nasty for him. And it was pretty funny. And then seeing him like excited and controlling the curse, Gojo gets happy too and excited, and he's like, we haven't seen talent like this in like 1,000 years. So he's something special apparently, this Itadori guy. And then he agrees to eat Sukuna, and he says, I don't care what happens to me afterwards because I chose how my death's gonna be. And Gojo was just excited. He's like, I love people like this. And and then it goes on from there. So Fushiguro shows up too, and he ends up telling that Gojo and Fushiguro tell them that he's going to be moving to Tokyo Metropolitan Jujutsu Technical High School. That's the full name of the place, and that's pretty much where they're going to be learning about the jujutsu arts and all that stuff. And he said he's going to be the third first year, is what he said. So it's Fushiguro, Itadori, and then there's one more, and I think it's the girl that they showed us at the very end of this episode, and I didn't catch her name. And then he ends up praying at his grandpa's, I think it was the family grave actually, and before heading out. And then he starts heading out to the school, and it's like deep in the mountains of Tokyo, he was saying. And overall in the whole jujutsu arts, there's only 2 schools, he said, and this is one of the 2. And a lot of people, after they graduate, they use this place as a base, like for the graduates, and a lot of people end up coming back here. And he has to make a really good impression with the principal, he said, because if he doesn't pass his interview, then he's not going to be accepted into the school. And going into the school, they have this little interaction with Sukuna, because he just shows up on Itadori's cheek all of a sudden and is like taunting Gojo. And he says, like, as soon as I take over this kid's body, you're going to be the first one that's going to die. So he says something along those lines. And then he's great. I'm starting to like him a lot. He reminds me a little bit of like Kakashi character from Naruto. And he's like, oh, I'm honored that I'm selected as a target from like Sukuna. And he's just like real happy. And then Itadori asks, like, if y'all were to fight, like, who would win? Like, are you stronger? And then he says he's stronger. He says that Gojo is stronger. Gojo says he's stronger. And Itadori's just like, well, what if he's at full power? He's like, it's probably going to be a struggle. But he ends up saying that he would still win. Even at full power, he would win. Because he keeps saying he was the strongest. Even at the beginning of the episode, he said, I'm the strongest. So they show up, and they're a little bit late. And it's Principal Masamichi, had to write his name down, and he's like this big. He had glasses on. He had like a goatee. He was darker skinned, and he had spiky hair. And he reminded me a little bit of Kondo from Gintama, just like the way they looked and the way they talked, kind of, and they were kind of funny-ish a little bit. And he's making stuffed animals, like he said they were dolls, but they're just like fluffy stuffed animals all around him. And he was sewing it himself, and he was giving them crap for being late. And he's like, and Gojo was like, "Why are you even saying anything? If you said I don't want to give you crap," just stuff like that. So they had this little back and forth, and immediately Itadori introduces himself, and he's like, "It's good to meet you. My name is Itadori. I like girls like Jennifer Lawrence," and that was really interesting, like just to throw in there. And then later on in the episode, from him saying that, it looked like he was putting a poster on it. I don't know if it was Jennifer Lawrence, but it was like a white blonde girl in like I think she was in a bikini on his wall in his room. And it was just funny that they like included that in. I don't know if it was in the manga, but it was really great. And well, after he introduces himself, he's immediately asked by the principal, he's like, "Why are you here?" And then she starts giving reasons, like just like generic stuff, like, "I want to capture Sukuna," and stuff like that. And then he ends up telling him, well, he was like, "No." He's like, "Why?" And then like he just question after question from the principal, and he ends up telling them that, "I'm doing it for like because of my grandpa's dying wish." And then the principal, that's when he was getting more and more upset, and he's like, "Why? Like, you're doing it for someone else because someone else told you to? So you're gonna be risking your life because someone else told you to?" And he's like, he wasn't happy with the answer. He's like, "You fail." And then all of a sudden he's like, you're gonna fight this thing." And it was like his little cursed doll, I think that's what he called it. He said, "You're gonna fight this until I get an answer that's acceptable." And then this little muscled up little bearish thing, it was funny. He was like doing little poses after he was beating up Itadori, and he was really fast for sure, and he was really powerful. So of course the principal was gonna be strong. So that was just probably one of his many techniques that he has, and he can probably do even more than that. But even just controlling this simple doll, he was able to do a lot of physical damage and a lot of speed, and be able to fight with Itadori, someone that's very athletic. And the more and more he's thinking about it, and then because what the principal wanted to get out of Itadori was that, don't do this because someone else told you to do this for yourself, because if you do it for yourself, then you won't have any regrets if you die, because that's one of the things that causes curses. And a lot of times these jujutsu people, they die and then they have major regrets. And he even said that if he died with regrets, he would just be cursing his grandfather, because it would be in a way his grandfather's fault for putting him in this situation. And he was just trying to get that out of Itadori, and he's saying, he ends up, after a few fights with the thing, and it was really cool, and he ends up saying that only I can do this. This is something only I can do. I can capture Sukuna. And then he refuses to not help people that need help. He wants to help people. That was the other thing he was really focused on. And after he gave that answer, the principal was like, "You pass. Like, go ahead and show him to the dorms." And he was just really cool. And then the doll beat him up a little more because he forgot to release the curse. It was just a little bit of humor after that, a lot of tension, and I like that they released that. So he ends up getting put in the room right to Fushiguro, and he's recovering from his wounds. And this is the scene where he puts up that picture of, I guess it's Jennifer Lawrence, and he gets more and more like he's getting comfortable, and he starts talking to Gojo. And then we find out he's actually going to be a major part, and he's going to be an integral part to the missions, because in a way he's going to be the vessel to contain Sukuna, and also he's going to be the one that finds all the other fingers, because they have 6 of them right now at the Jujutsu school, and he's like a radar because he can find the rest of them apparently, because some, like he said, some were hidden somewhere, some don't really show off their energy, and then some are inside of other Kursens that have absorbed them, he said. So he's going to be an integral part of all these missions that they go on to find the rest of the fingers, and that was really cool. And they said into tomorrow is when they're gonna go pick up that 3rd student, and I guess it was that short-haired girl, kind of brown hair, and she seemed really interesting from the preview. It seemed like she's gonna be a pretty badass character. So we'll see what happens. And that was the end of the episode. So I liked it. It's just getting better and better. We're getting more information about the world, and the story's starting to line up and kind of see where it's gonna be going from now on. I'm excited for the third episode, and I hope to see y'all in the next one. And the ending was really great. Let me know what y'all think if y'all like the ending. I loved it a lot. I love the animation for sure. But thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching it. Thank y'all for watching. And y'all have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Peace.